Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The sun was setting over New York, bathing the streets in an orange glow that filtered between the skyscrapers. In a chic Manhattan cafe, Emma Whitman, a white woman in her 50s, elegant and influential in the business world, sipped her cappuccino while leafing through her morning paper. Her face displayed that subtle blend of self-assurance and arrogance that some people seem to wear like a coat. At the next table, Marcus Johnson, a black man in his 30s, dressed in a simple but impeccable suit, was calmly reading a business file. He was a lawyer and had just finished a high-profile case that had caused quite a stir in the legal community. But for Emma, the color of his skin was enough to trigger an immediate judgment. When she saw Marcus ask the waitress for extra sugar, she frowned. In a condescending tone, she interrupted him. "Excuse me, but we don't serve that kind of." Her words caught in her throat when she met his gaze. Marcus remained polite, raising an eyebrow, but said nothing. Emma, unable to hide her contempt, made a theatrical gesture and called the waitress over to sort this out. Little did she know that she had just committed an irreparable act. A few moments later, a scene unfolded that would leave a lasting impression. Emma, certain of her authority, humiliated Marcus in front of all the cafe's customers. She treated him with contempt, implying that he didn't belong there, that he wasn't worthy of respect, that he was inferior. But Emma was unaware of a fundamental truth: Marcus wasn't just a respected lawyer. He was one of the most influential civil rights advocates in the country, a man whose recent actions had garnered the attention of black communities across the United States. His name was circulating on social media and in the specialized press. No sooner had Emma finished speaking than someone in the cafe, a witness to the scene, pulled out their phone and filmed the humiliation. The video spread like wildfire on social media. It quickly went viral. Messages of anger, outrage, and support for Marcus multiplied. Thousands of black people across the country mobilized to denounce Emma's racism. What Emma believed to be a simple display of superiority turned into a national firestorm. Within hours, her name became synonymous with racism and arrogance, and the woman who thought she could humiliate a black man with impunity discovered that the world around her would not remain silent. The next morning, Emma Whitman woke up with a slight headache, convinced that the scene in the cafe would soon be forgotten. She had always believed that her influence and social network would protect her from any scandal. But she was sorely mistaken. On her phone, one notification after another made the screen vibrate. The video of Marcus's humiliation was circulating on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Every second showed Emma sneering and belittling Marcus in front of the cafe's customers. The comments poured in: "Racist, unacceptable, where is the justice?" Emma felt her heart sink. Journalists from national media outlets were contacting her for comment. She tried to send a cold, condescending message to her assistant. "Cancel all interviews. It's a minor storm." But the storm was far from insignificant. Civil rights activists had already organized rallies outside his company, chanting slogans denouncing systemic racism. The hashtags #JusticeForMarcus and #EmmaWhitmanRacist were going viral. Meanwhile, Marcus, impassive, was already preparing a press conference. He wasn't seeking revenge, only justice and awareness. He wanted every person in this country to understand that public racist humiliations would not go unpunished. The atmosphere in Emma's offices was electric. Her colleagues tried to downplay the event, but everyone knew her reputation was crumbling. Investors were starting to pull out, fearing that being associated with her would damage their image. Emma, meanwhile, began to grasp the magnitude of the situation. The arrogant and self-assured woman found herself overwhelmed by fear and anxiety. She realized too late that her act of contempt, which she had believed to be harmless, had triggered a national reaction. And meanwhile, Marcus, calmly and with dignity, was preparing to give his version of events to the public, knowing that this confrontation would mark the beginning of a much larger fight against racism in the United States. The following Monday morning, Emma Whitman didn't even dare look at herself in the mirror. The video had gone viral on all social media platforms. Even her influential contacts and most loyal colleagues were starting to look at her with suspicion and distance. Private messages and indignant emails poured in. Some of her company's clients were canceling contracts, and financial partners were calling to express their disapproval. The world Emma thought she had under control was slipping completely out of her control. Meanwhile, Marcus Johnson had organized a press conference in Manhattan. In front of national and international media cameras, he calmly recounted what had happened, describing the humiliation he had suffered and emphasizing that this was not an isolated incident, but an example of the daily racism faced by Black people in the United States. Social media erupted. Thousands of people shared his testimony, adding their own stories of discrimination and racism. Spontaneous demonstrations appeared in several major cities, from New York to Los Angeles, chanting Marcus's name and denouncing abuses of power and institutional racism. Feeling her world crumble around her, Emma clumsily attempted to post a public apology on her social media accounts. But her words rang false and artificial. "I'm sorry if my words offended anyone," she wrote. But the damage was done. The public saw no sincerity, only an attempt to salvage her reputation. Tensions within the company were running high. Employees whispered in the hallways, some siding with Marcus, others with Emma, but all knew this affair would mark a turning point for their organization. Investors were threatening to withdraw funds, and the media were beginning to investigate Emma's life and personal activities. Even her closest friends, who had supported her for years, were beginning to distance themselves, aware that Marcus's humiliation had struck a nerve across the country. Emma found herself alone, facing an angry public and a man whose dignity and composure stood in stark contrast to his past arrogance. And with each mention of her name in the media, she felt her world crumble a little more. Marcus, on the other hand, remained in control of the situation, transforming the injustice he had suffered into a powerful message for justice and equality. A few weeks after the incident, Emma Whitman found herself caught in a media and legal whirlwind from which she couldn't escape. Every morning, her phone buzzed incessantly, news articles, viral videos, indignant messages from strangers, persistent calls from journalists. Even government social media had seized upon the case, and the hashtag Justice for Marcus continued to gain traction. The case had now gone beyond mere public humiliation. Several civil rights organizations had filed a formal complaint against Emma for discrimination and harassment. Civil rights lawyers had warned her that she risked not only a substantial fine, but also criminal prosecution for her actions. In her luxurious office, Emma gazed at the walls adorned with diplomas and trophies, realizing that it was all worthless in the face of the storm engulfing her. Her former arrogance had given way to fear and paranoia. She no longer slept, constantly monitoring the media and her emails. Meanwhile, Marcus Johnson was becoming a national symbol. Television interviews, podcasts, and magazine articles portrayed him as the man who had withstood humiliation with dignity. His calm and measured way of recounting the events had touched millions of people. His image inspired not only the Black community but also those fighting against all forms of injustice. The pressure on Emma intensified when a popular television talk show invited Marcus to discuss the incident. The millions of viewers who tuned in saw Emma confronted with the reality of her actions for the first time, through the images of the viral video. The racist woman, who thought she could humiliate someone with impunity, was now being publicly shamed in front of the entire nation. Emma tried to justify herself, but every explanation seemed to dig her deeper into a hole. The words arrogance, racism, and contempt were attached to her name in every article. Even her colleagues began to whisper that her career was probably over. Meanwhile, Marcus, ever calm and determined, announced that he planned to use the case to launch a national anti-racism awareness campaign. He transformed a personal humiliation into a powerful and respected movement. Emma, alone in her office, felt her world crumbling. Every smile she had once proudly worn was now a grimace of fear. She had learned, too late, that some actions can never go unpunished. The following weeks were a true nightmare for Emma Whitman. Legal complaints piled up, and the media pressure never let up. Every public appearance became a risk, and even her closest friends avoided openly supporting her. The once arrogant and influential woman found herself isolated and vulnerable. The courtroom became the stage for his ultimate humiliation. Marcus, represented by his lawyers, calmly and methodically laid out the facts, the public humiliation, the discrimination, and the emotional impact it had had on him. The evidence was irrefutable: the viral video, the testimonies of customers present in the cafe, and the company's messages demonstrated that Emma's actions were not only racist but premeditated. As the hearing unfolded, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. Television cameras broadcast the event live to millions of viewers. Social media exploded, sharing shocking clips from the proceedings. Thousands of citizens protested outside the courthouse, holding signs with slogans like "Justice for Marcus" and "Never Again Racism." Emma tried to explain herself, but her defense seemed empty and hypocritical. The judges and the public saw only a woman who refused to acknowledge the gravity of her actions. Her past arrogance had left no room for spontaneous redemption. Finally, the verdict came down: Emma was sentenced to substantial fines and mandatory civil rights education. But the hardest part for her was the loss of reputation and the massive public backlash. Her name became a symbol of racism and arrogance punished, and her once flourishing career faded into obscurity. For his part, Marcus Johnson emerged from this ordeal stronger and more respected. His composure and dignity had inspired a national mobilization against racism. Civil rights organizations used his story to launch awareness campaigns, and he became a model of resistance and courage. As Emma left the courthouse, her face grim and ashamed, Marcus offered a simple smile to the crowd, a symbolic gesture of victory and justice. The Black Revolt in the United States, fueled by centuries of injustice, had found a powerful catalyst in this case, proving that even personal humiliation could be transformed into a national movement for dignity and equality. And throughout the country, Emma Whitman's story served as a lesson: racism never goes unpunished, and dignity can triumph even in the face of the greatest arrogance.